I can't quite believe it, but we've reached the halfway point of another year. 2025 has been a whirlwind, and I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. But despite everything that may be happening outside of our control, we need to keep working towards our dream life. And hopefully, the goals you've set for the year will help you get there. At the end of 2024, I shared my personal and business goals for 2025. And since we've reached the halfway point of the year, I want to do a quick mid year goal check in. This helps me stay on top of what I set out to accomplish in the year and holds me accountable by sharing with you. Hopefully, this episode encourages you to do your own mid year goals check in as well. Hey there, I'm Rhea Reeves, and over a decade ago, I turned my life around through budgeting. I went from being an overspender deep in credit card debt to being the founder and full-time money coach of City Girl Savings. Now, I help women work towards their dream life and tap into their financial power one budget at a time. I fully believe you can live a life you love with a budget, and I'm living proof. The weekly City Girl Savings podcast focuses on the intersection of money and the City Girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. So before I dive in, if you want to hear the episode from the end of last year where I actually shared my 2025 personal and business goals, I will link to it in the show notes. It is episode 157. So let's get into the progress I've made towards my personal and business goals for 2025. And I'm going to follow the same kind of format when I shared the original goals for the year. I will first cover my personal goals and then we'll talk business goals. So my personal goals for 2025, the first goal that I set was to walk 12,000 steps per day, Monday through Friday. And when I originally shared this goal, I had mentioned that I hadn't lost any weight in 2024, despite hitting 10K steps a day and adding more fiber to my diet. Well, I've kind of talked about this in recent episodes, but I do want to share that I am absolutely on track with this goal. So I do hit 12,000 steps a day, Monday through Friday, and I've lost over 11 pounds. I'm kind of stalling at the 11 to 13 pound mark, but that is huge. But I can tell you that the steps aren't really what contributed to the weight loss. Seeing a naturopathic doctor did. I had originally sought her out earlier this year for what I thought were allergy issues. Turned out to be gut inflammation problems. Crazy, right? What's interesting about that is back in 2023, I actually sought out the help of a gastroenterologist because I knew something was happening with my digestive system and it was out of whack. But back then, that doctor told me to get more fiber. So that's why my goal in 2024 was to get more fiber and obviously walk more. But since seeing the naturopathic doctor, I've actually been instructed to cut out gluten, cut out dairy, limit sugar, limit alcohol, and do 2 low-carb days a week. And by low carb, that means 30 to 40 grams of carbs for the entire day. And on top of that, I'm on a supplement routine, vitamin and supplements. So the naturopathic doctor, she instructed me to get blood work. She heard all of my symptoms. And I've seen more progress in the past, 3 months since I started seeing her than I have in the past 2 years, just kind of trying to do things on my own. So I am very proud of my progress with this specific goal, but also with health and weight related intentions that I had as well. So I cannot wait to see what happens for the rest of the year in terms of my body and how I feel and how I look. But on track with this first goal for 2025. The next goal I set personal wise for 2025 was to max out my Roth IRA, which is $7,000 for the year. So far, I've contributed $5,500 to my Roth IRA this year, and that means I have $1,500 left. So I really don't have any doubts that I'll be able to hit this goal before the year ends. I tried to pump as much money as I could in as early as I could so that it kind of makes my life easier the second half of the year. So I am definitely well on track to reach this goal. Not worried about it. The next personal goal I set for 2025 was to see a short-term rental profit. So last year, around this time last year, I actually closed on a second home in Palm Springs. It was a major life goal that I have been saving and investing for years. I closed on that property. And since I'm not in a position to not have that property make money, I decided to try short-term rentals. So I decided to Airbnb that property out, and I dabbled in it closer to the end of last year, kind of got my footing. And so my goal for this year was to actually see a profit from it. Well, I'm very excited to share that I made it through my first festival season. So Coachella and Stagecoach are music festivals that are actually in that Desert Cities area where my property is located. So I was fully booked out for festival season, which was awesome. But I've also had a few other months earlier this year that were about 95% booked. So as of right now, the property is pretty much break even for the year. So what I've spent, I've made. And I'm getting ready to move into the slower season, which is summertime, because summer in the desert is hot and most people don't choose to vacation there. So unfortunately, this break-even amount may change in the opposite direction of what I want moving into the summer, but anything can happen. I have no idea because this is my first summer season now owning a property out there. So if summer is slow, I have my reserves, I'm okay. And I think things will pick back up again in September through the end of the year. So not quite sure if I'm on track for this. We'll have to see how summer goes. But at least as of right now, I'm broke even. And the next step would be getting a little bit of a profit in. All right, moving on to the next goal that I set for 2025. It was read 2 books a month. So with the exception of April of this year, I've actually been on track with this goal. In April, my fiance's sister came to visit from London and she stayed with us for 2 weeks, and we were taking her around Texas. We went to New York City, and that totally threw my reading routine off a bit. But I think if I can read just 1 extra book in future months, it'll all even out. So I'm not too worried about this. If I have a book that I love, I can breeze through it and add an extra one for the month. My final personal goal that I set for 2025 was to save and invest more than I did in 2024. So this goal was actually specific to my HSA, my emergency fund, and my general investment accounts. And I didn't really give myself specific numbers, and that's because my income fluctuates. So I kind of gave myself a little bit of breathing room here. I just want to make sure that I save and invest more than I did last year. And I can say, with the exception of my HSA, I'm kind of behind on that. I have saved and invested more than I did this time last year. So I'm definitely moving in the right direction with that. And there's still plenty of time to get through the year and save more in my HSA. So this is something that is definitely continuing to be top of mind as we move through the year. Okay, that was my personal goal mid-year check-in. Now let's get into the business mid-year goal check-in.
Are you loving this episode so far? Well, the money and life level up conversations never end in the City Girl Savings community. Visit citygirlsavings.com for instant access to resources that help you budget, level up your money mindset, and so much more. And make sure you stay up to date with CGS by following us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at City Girl Savings.
So the first goal for the business, and when I say the business, I mean City Girl Savings. The first goal for City Girl Savings for 2025 was to increase revenue by 25% and increase profit margin by 5%. So let me start with the good news first. profit margin is up by 11% so far this year compared to this time last year. I have been able to lean out some expenses that were higher last year, and that has helped tremendously. The kind of not so good news is that revenue is down by about 3% compared to this time last year. I will say that this time last year, I had a lot more sales with custom budget plans than I have so far this year. And I also think that the economy, the current administration really has people being wary about how they spend their money and how they allocate any excess income that they have. But all things considered, my net income is higher than this time last year because of that profit margin increase. And this is kind of the first year I've actually focused on profit margin, which is a little silly of me. At the end of the day, it's not really about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. And that goes for personal finances, but it also goes for business finances. So I'm definitely happy with where we are with this goal this year, but still have some work to do. The next business goal for 2025 was to increase email subscribers by 10%. So this is a goal that I've constantly had. Like for years, you've probably heard me say that I would love for us to hit 10,000 email subscribers and always kind of come up short between adding people, removing people. So I tried a new approach of using a percentage-based method to see how we're actually growing in this area. And right now, we currently have about a 4% email subscriber growth rate. So this is the first time I'm really tracking it that way. And so obviously 4% is not 10%. We still have the rest of the year to go. But I am happy to see that we are steadily growing month over month, even if it's not that 10% mark. That 10% mark is the goal, though. So we will see how it goes for the rest of the year. We have some free community savings challenges coming up. So I think that will help. And the final specific goal I had for the business for 2025 was to have 45,000 City Girl Savings podcast downloads for the year. So that's about an increase of 500 downloads more a month than what we had last year. And unfortunately, we're off track with this goal. We haven't really seen an increase this year compared to 2024. So things are kind of holding steady. Still time to turn things around, though. And if you're listening, thank you so much. That helps us reach our goal. And if you have a friend or family member or coworker or acquaintance that would enjoy the City Girl Savings podcast, just hearing about life and money and leveling up and manifesting and all of that good stuff, please share it with them. It would help us reach this goal, but also help us reach more people. Now, I did have some other targets that we set for City Girl Savings for 2025. They just weren't specific goals. They were things like improving our social media engagement rate, YouTube growth, and increased website views. So those are things that we're tracking and monitoring, but they're not as big of a priority as these goals that I just shared with you. So if you weren't aware, you can actually watch the City Girl Savings podcast episodes on our YouTube channel, along with other educational videos that we share. So if you're not following along or subscribed on YouTube, please do. So there you have it. My progress for personal and business goals for 2025 thus far. As you heard, some goals are crushing it, killing it. Others, not so much, but that's the nature of the game. That does not mean that we stop working or that we give up. It just means we switch up tactics, we course correct, we try to bounce back before the year ends. So that will be my focus for the rest of the year. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you do your own mid-year goals check-in. And here's to reaching our 2025 goals. We got this.
Thank you so much for letting me be the money coach in your ear today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the City Girl Savings Podcast and you feel empowered and motivated to take the next step in the journey to your dream life. Remember, if someone like me, a millennial who loves to travel, new experiences, and iced coffees can live a life they love on a budget, you can too.